Thank you for joining us to talk about the new NTIA Broadband Infrastructure Grant Program. Today, we'll be providing an overview of that grant program and the different projects that it can fund and who is eligible, because we want to make sure that our communities have a leg up on submitting their applications to this program that just opened. I apologize for not being on camera today. My name is Eric Frederick. I'm with Connected Michigan. I live out in a rural area and I'm struggling with my internet connection today. So we're going to be doing things just a little bit differently. So Ryan, our IT guru, will be advancing the slides for me. So Ryan, could you go ahead and go to the next slide? A few things we want to cover again. We will have a welcome from our esteemed Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Garland Gilchrist. We'll go over the infrastructure grant program. We'll talk about some other broadband funding opportunities that I want to make you aware of for communities and internet service providers. We'll talk about the upcoming virtual listing tour and of course answer your questions and then adjourn. So Ryan, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, and I will turn the microphone over to our Lieutenant Governor for a nice warm welcome. So Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone for participating in this conversation today. And even my laptop. I want to thank everyone for being here though. You know, this conversation today is exciting because it's about opportunity. You know, we have the biggest and best opportunity to expand access to the internet and all of the things that come with that since the internet was invented before us right now. And so this grant program is particularly exciting to me because it is, you know, really incentivizing the pathway for the kinds of public and private partnerships that will need to come together for us to, I think, reach the scale we need to reach that'll lead to the innovation in terms of partnerships and business models that will lead to ultimately the delivery of service to all of our people. Make no mistake about it, the state of Michigan has an opportunity to be a leader and become the first state in the nation to connect all of our people. That means that we have to take advantage of every opportunity and every resource that is available and apply all of our ingenuity and our muscle to making something happen for our people. In the last year, we have seen what's at stake as far as what internet access can enable and what people are not able to reach if they can't access it. And so we have to make sure that we're using every tool at our disposal. We have to make sure that we're encouraging individuals and households to take advantage of new benefits like the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. We need to make sure that as a state government, that we are fully leveraging the resources that have been made available to the state of Michigan through the American Rescue Plan and allocating a meaningful fraction of those resources to connect our people to the internet. The American Jobs Plan that will be negotiated in Congress this summer and going into the fall represents, again, a generational opportunity to invest in connecting people to the internet, whether it's through access, through affordability, through digital literacy, or through some combination of the three. This is our moment in the state of Michigan. We have allies at the FCC. We have allies in the Biden-Harris administration. We have allies on both sides of the aisle in the Michigan legislature. It's our opportunity to come together to do what the best type of public service does, which is to create the conditions for people to be successful. And make no mistake about it, people and communities will have a greater chance of success if they are connected and if they have internet access that will enable their imaginations and to be able to help them bring their dreams to fruition. And so I thank all of you for participating in this webinar to get the information and resources you need to participate in this amazing opportunity for us to make a difference for people and communities across the state of Michigan. Know that Governor Gretchen Whitmer and I are always going to advocate for connectivity. We will fight for connectivity and resources therein, and we will work with anyone who is ready and willing to work with us to solve this problem. So this is what Standing Tall for Michigan means. It means delivering this for our people. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Some very great words, and to put things in perspective about the opportunity that we have in front of us. If there's those on the phone that remember the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act days back in 2008 and 2009, there was roughly $350 million out there for broadband. And now with the American Rescue Plan, the potential for the American Jobs Plan and other efforts, we're talking about tens of billions of dollars to improve connectivity. So we want to make sure that Michigan has every opportunity to take advantage of those federal opportunities. And that's why we're here today to talk about the new NTIA Infrastructure Grant Program and preview some of the other programs that are out there for funding. Just a very quick note. We're here. This webinar is really put together by the Connecting Michigan Taskforce, which again is an interagency working group of the state agencies that you see here. This group looks for ways to better coordinate broadband activity, and again, make sure we're advocating for Michigan broadband at that federal scale. So this group is here to help and to really better coordinate broadband activity. So Ryan, if you could go to the next slide for me, and we'll get going on the NTIA program. So I do want to say that I do not represent the NTIA. They will have lots more information at webinars that they're going to be hosting in June. But what we wanted to do today was really give our stakeholders here a leg up on this information so that you can go out and start creating partnerships and start planning for this grant program, because there is such a short application window, relatively short application window. So the new NTIA Broadband Infrastructure Program makes grants available on a competitive basis for the deployment of broadband infrastructure. The deadline to apply is August 17th at midnight, so keep that date in mind. And awards are expected to be announced before December of this year, which is a pretty quick turnaround for application deadline and award notification. The NTIA has $288 million available for this program, and they expect projects to range from anywhere from 5 million to 30 million. There is no cap on the total award amount per project, but this is what they expect. And if awards are more than this, or I should say applications are more than this, those costs will have to be justified. And they do expect to give out about approximately 200 awards or fund 200 projects, which isn't a huge number when we think that this program is scaled nationally. And that's why we want to make sure our applications, especially from Michigan, are competitive for this program. This is the website for the grant. It has all the information on the grant. You can download the PDF there. It also has the application for the program on there. So while I'm talking about the details of the program today, go ahead and enter your questions in the question and answer box via Zoom, and we'll create a backlog of those questions, and I'll get to them at the end as we go. So please do submit questions throughout the presentation today. So Ryan, let's go on to the next one. Starting at the very top of the summary here, the program makes grants on a competitive basis to covered partnerships for covered broadband projects. And I want to make sure we define these very clearly, because the covered partnership, I think, is the key to this program. A covered partnership is a partnership between a state or one or more political subdivisions of a state and one or more providers of fixed broadband service. So the NTIA is looking to fund partnerships. The applications have to be from a partnership between, again, one or more political subdivisions of a state or one or more internet service providers. And then a covered broadband project is a competitively and technologically neutral project for the deployment of a fixed qualifying broadband service in an eligible service area. So what do those two terms mean? So a qualifying broadband service is a service with a download and upload speed of at least 25/3 megabits per second, and two, a latency sufficient to support real-time interactive applications, so a latency of less than 100 milliseconds. And in the notice of funds opportunity, they have more details on how they calculate latency and some of the other issues as well. An eligible service area then is a census block in which broadband service at 25/3 is not available at one or more households or businesses in that census block as determined by the NTIA using the most recent available information. So the whole block does not need to be unserved, but there has to be at least one or more households in that block that do not have service at 25/3 megabits per second. So that this covers our definition of partnership, our definition of what that project is, what qualifies as broadband service, and then what is an eligible service area. So Ryan, let's go on to the next one. The good news about this is that there is no cost sharing or match requirement for this program, unlike many other past federal grant programs. However, the NTIA will look favorably on applications that contribute at least a 10% match of non-federal funds. So again, it's not required, but applications will receive more points and be more competitive if they do bring non-federal cost sharing and match to the program. Match can be in the form of either cash or in-kind contributions. And again, the NOFA that was published by NTIA has a lot more information on what in-kind definitions are, as well as the cash on hand. Projects must be completed within 1 year of the date of award. I think this is also not necessarily unique to this program, but is one of the more tricky spots. Not only is it funding partnerships, but the project has to be essentially done within a year. They will grant a 1-year extension if some criteria are met, including that there's a plan for the grant funds, or that construction is underway, or there's extenuating circumstances that require an extension. But it does have a 1-year project performance period from the date of award. So that can be a little bit tricky as you're putting together your partnerships. Ryan, let's go on to the next one. So what does an application look like? It's a pretty standard way of gathering information for an application. So the project narrative, they do say it has a page limit, so no more than 20 single space pages, and an executive summary that's no more than 2 pages. And in that application, they're looking for the descriptions of the partnership, project itself, the area to be served, the funding priorities met, and I'll get to the first funding priorities here in just a second. How the project addresses the evaluation criteria, which we'll cover as well, how the project scales, the major project activities in a timeline, of course, the physical project area and its surroundings, so a description of the geography that'll be served, support provided to the provider of broadband service. So how are the public and private entities coming together for the broadband service, and how the project will incorporate strong labor standards. So there is a little bit more detail in the notice of funds available about the labor standards that NTIA is requiring. So Ryan, let's go into the next one. Some other application elements that'll need to be included are a budget narrative with a detailed budget justification, indirect cost rate agreements, letters of commitment from public, private entities, households, businesses that might be served by this project. So those that are committing to support the project, maps of the proposed service areas, pro forma financial information analyses, and network diagrams and system designs. So for those of you who have worked on broadband grants or projects or applications in the past, this is probably not new information. I don't think there's anything in here that is out of line with similar programs that we've seen at either a state or a federal level. Let's go on to the next one. All right, so these are the priorities that I had talked about, and I've changed from bullets to numbers here because the NTIA does rank these priorities. So projects that meet the criteria in order from 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 will score higher. So number 1, their priority are projects designed to provide service to the greatest number of households in an eligible area. So they are looking at pure last mile connections as a priority in those eligible service areas. Their next priority are projects that are designed to provide service in an eligible area that is wholly within any area other than counties, cities, or towns with more than 50,000 in population, or urbanized areas that are contiguous and adjacent to a city or town with a population greater than 50,000. So we're looking for areas other than those as their second priority. The third priority are projects that are the most cost-effective, prioritizing such projects in areas that are the most rural. Fourth, are projects designed to provide broadband service with a speed of at least 100 by 20 megabits per second. And then finally, any other project that meets the requirement of the funding announcement. So these are their priorities for the projects that are coming in. Again, they're really focused on the greatest number of households or locations in an eligible area receiving the last mile connections. And finally, the language on this last paragraph here comes directly from the notice that NTIA published. So they are interested in ensuring that any broadband infrastructure deployed under this grant will have the ability to evolve, sustain, and scale for future advanced services that will also be important to the U.S. economy. So they are encouraging the submission of project proposals that deploy future-proof infrastructure, example, fiber. So again, this comes directly from the NOFA. I believe that fiber projects would likely receive more points in the scaling criteria of the grant. But I wanted to put this in here because it's important to know about NTIA's priorities when it comes to their funding decisions. So let's go on to the next one. All right, so this is the scoring criteria that they plan to use. Again, there's a lot more information on each of these in the notice of funds available. And we'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of this presentation afterwards today, which of course has the links to that document in it. So they've got three scoring criteria buckets, if you will, with some sub criteria as well. So the project purpose and benefit, the level of impact in the proposed service area, again, the number of locations that can be serviced. They'll also be awarding points on affordability. And so the applicants will have to justify the cost of the service, and they will compare it to existing services in surrounding areas to determine the affordability of service for the project. The second category is project viability. So the technical approach to the project, the related network capacity and performance, the applicant's organizational capability. So both the public, both sides of that partnership, whether it's a public-private, public-public partnership, whatever that looks like, they'll look at that organizational capability of handling the project and implementing it. The third area is the project budget and sustainability. So this is where that scalability and sustainability comes into play, as well as the financial fitness of the project to sustain over the long term. The reasonableness of the budget, of course, and leveraging of non-federal resources. That's where that preference for at least a 10% match would come in. So again, match or in-kind contributions are not required, but they are obviously looking for and will look favorably on projects that do bring some sort of non-federal resources to the project for a total of 100 points. And again, there's more information on each of these in the NOFA that NTIA released. So Ryan, let's go on to the next one. Okay, so the full grant information and application is available here. And again, we will send out this presentation afterwards. The NTIA will be hosting their own webinars on this program June 9th and June 10th. And I've included the registration links here as well. I wanted to make sure that our Michigan community has got a leg up again on this program, which is why we held the webinar today. And you'll get much more information on it. Also, the contact information for the person at NTIA who's in charge of this program is here as well. Her phone number, email address is right here. And she is listed on the NOFA as the primary contact at NTIA. So very specific questions can definitely be directed to her about this program. So we do have some questions that have come in, and I can answer these here real quick. Will this presentation be shared? Yes, it will be shared, and we'll make sure everyone who attended and registered for this webinar gets a copy of it. One question was, this program is only for fixed fiber, so cellular programs are not eligible. The NOFA does say that it is technologically neutral. However, whatever technology is deployed would have to meet the standards of the program itself. So again, it appears that NTIA is heavily favoring fiber, just from kind of reading between the lines in the NOFA. But it is technically a technologically neutral grant program. Yes, we'll receive a copy of the presentations. There was a comment about with all of the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund work that's happening right now, it may be difficult to find resources to complete the projects in a year, and I would agree. I think that especially within a year, there might be troublesome to try and find the resources to do that. So that's why I said, between the fact that it's a partnership and two, that it does have such a short project performance period, it could be a challenging grant program to implement. However, for projects that are ripe and ready, I think it could be a very good way to get funding. You mentioned the requirement of a partnership. I think NTIA specified in their May 19th release that it must be a public-private partnership. So in the NOFA, Ryan, can we go back to let's see, slide 5, I believe. Let me go back because wording is important for these, and I just want to make sure that I'm saying it correctly. Yeah, keep going. So what happens when I don't have great internet at my house? I can't run the presentation. It's hard to communicate that. Keep going, Ryan. One more, I believe. Yep. So here is where they have that definition of covered partnership. So a partnership is between a state or one or more political subdivisions of a state and one or more providers of fixed broadband service. I'd have to look in more detail to see if that provider of fixed broadband service has to be a private entity or if nonprofit and public entities that provide fixed broadband service could be the partner. I think that's a really good question. It's something to look into, and it might be a more detailed question that NTIA themselves could answer. So I would definitely look to them to help answer that. Clarification: can communities apply with an ISP as a partner? Yes, I believe that's the purpose of this program, is having communities and ISPs partner to provide service. Will it be posting a list of entities who are interested in partnering? That's a good question. I don't necessarily have that information on hand. What I would recommend to those who on the call who are public entities and represent a community to reach out to internet service providers in your community and see if there's anyone that's interested. And I would say likewise for internet service providers who are looking to partner. Reach out to surrounding communities that you know are unserved or underserved, and start those conversations. And certainly, if you'd like to contact Connected Nation Michigan through our website, we might be able to help identify some of those folks if you're having trouble finding them. Let's see. Given the required partnership, who can own the infrastructure, the ISP or the county state entity? That is a good question. I do not have the answer to that one, but I believe there's more information in the notice of funds available on the ownership of the infrastructure. And if there's not, I would recommend reaching out to NTIA directly, or maybe holding that question until their webinars on June 9th and 10th. That might be helpful. Let's see, are areas with 25x3 ineligible, or can funds be used to upgrade to 100x10 or more? I believe the intent here is that an eligible service area has to have no service at 25x3. So if they already have 25x3, that those locations and areas would not be eligible for this grant. However, I think that would be a good question to ask for NTIA on their future webinars. Let's see. Definition of partnerships. So yeah, so there's lots of questions here about partnerships. So will a public-private be preferred rather than a public-public? I'm not sure. It does just say that it has to be a one or more political subdivisions of a state, and one or more providers of fixed broadband service. And we certainly have a number of nonprofit or public broadband providers in the state. So I'm not sure exactly what is going to be preferred by NTIA. So I would definitely hold that question for their webinars on the 9th and 10th, or look through the NOFA to see if there's any more information on there. A preference is a hard thing to gauge from some of those notice of funds available. So the webinars, the NTIA hosting might be a good way to get that information. Do you believe there will be only one award per state? I don't believe so. I believe that there's a possibility for more than one award per state, because there will be. I believe there's going to be lots of applications from partnerships in the states. So they do look to provide 200 awards for this program that range anywhere from $5 to $30 million is their current estimate. So I do believe there would be multiple awards per state, but I think it'll really depend on the applications and whether those applications meet the criteria that NTIA is looking at. This question came in, and I knew this was going to come up. Is the 25/3 requirement as mapped by the FCC? And then what about areas that are served by 25/3, but in reality are not? So in the notice of funds available, when it talks about the eligible service areas, it does refer to the FCC's new authority to create more detailed broadband maps. And then it says that if that data is not available, then the Assistant Secretary of NTIA would use the most recent information available, including data from the FCC. So it's not really clear exactly how the NTIA is going to be determining those eligible service areas, because we're kind of in a limbo period between the current data the FCC collects and them citing the new methodology that the FCC is going to be implementing over the next several years. So that would be a really great question for NTIA. I will likely ask that myself of them, because I think it's going to be really important for determining what areas are going to be eligible for this grant or not. One thing I didn't see as well is if NTIA is going to be going into proposed project areas and determining if there is no service or not, validating what is said in an application. That would be another question as well. So there's a number of questions still, particularly about the eligible service areas, that I plan to ask NTIA, and I think others should as well, just to make sure that we're clear on that. But from the notice of funds available, it does look like areas that do not have 25/3 are those eligible service areas. And I would say that any information that an applicant can provide to either substantiate that or refute federal mapping data would probably be supported in an application in showing that those areas are truly eligible for the grant. So again, I think that's a really good question for the NTIA at their webinars, as well as for the main contact person at NTIA. So I believe I hit all of the questions that we have currently. And again, there's a lot more information in the notice of funds available. I know reading those grant documents can be pretty tedious. That's why I wanted to summarize it for you here today. But there is a lot more information here. And again, we'll get this presentation out to everyone so you can have these links live and register for these webinars as well. So Ryan, let's go on to the next one and talk about some other funds that are out there. So as if you've been following broadband at a federal level, there's been a lot going on with funding. So I wanted to summarize these for everyone here for awareness. So here at the top, we have the Partnership Infrastructure Grant that we just went through that's due August 17th. The Lieutenant Governor also mentioned the Emergency Broadband Benefit. That is a program that provides a $50 per month discount on internet service for qualifying households. We're trying to build awareness for this program out there because it is a great way to help those who can't afford their connections get connected. And that program opened up earlier this month, and eligible households can work with their internet service providers to enroll in that program and take advantage of that benefit. The USDA also has a distance learning and telemedicine grant for schools and healthcare institutions for related equipment for those two activities. Those are due June 4th, so pretty quick turnaround. It's been open for a little while now, but that's another opportunity. One of the ones that I know that our local communities have been interested in is the state and local fiscal recovery funds. Those are the funds from the American Rescue Plan that the U.S. Treasury issued guidance on. And they can be used for a myriad of things, but broadband is included as one of those eligible expenses for those fiscal recovery funds. So there's more guidance here that I included in a link that you'll get when you get this PowerPoint presentation. But broadband can be an eligible expense for those local fiscal recovery funds. I had to modify my presentation about half an hour ago because the Institute of Museum and Library Services just released a new grant called the Pandemic Response Funding. It's a $15 million grant program for libraries to address community needs, including digital inclusion. So devices, connectivity, training, digital literacy work is included in that fund, and those applications are due June 28th. The FCC is also working to open up the application window for their emergency connectivity fund for schools and libraries, and this will help support home connectivity for students through this effort. It's a pretty good size, $7.1 billion fund. And again, we're waiting for that application period to open here in June. Some of the other programs that we're currently watching, the NTIA also has a tribal connectivity fund coming up. It's a $1 billion fund for broadband, as well as affordability and digital literacy and devices for tribal entities. The USDA Reconnect program, where their application window is likely going to open in 2021 for another round of that program, which again is for rural broadband infrastructure. The NTIA also has the Minority Community Pilot Program, which leverages higher education institutions for home connectivity and connectivity in their communities. Again, it's a pilot program though, and so we're waiting on that. The Capital Projects Fund was also part of the American Rescue Plan, and that is a fund for states. So that is a $10 billion program for states to apply to receive funding for connectivity, telemedicine, distance learning, and so on. And we're still waiting on Treasury guidance for that one. And then finally, the American Jobs Plan, which was released by the White House and has been talked about quite a bit and gone back and forth between the White House and the legislature, will likely have significant funding for broadband. So when the Lieutenant Governor said that we are at a pivotal moment in history with addressing connectivity, he was not wrong in the least. There's a big opportunity for not only Michigan, but the entire nation to take advantage of this opportunity and expand connectivity. And this NTIA grant program is just one way to do that. Ryan, let's go on to the next one. The Connecting Michigan Taskforce hosts a quarterly virtual listening tour. Some of you may have participated on our listening tour back in early March, and we are doing it again. Because there's been so much happening with broadband, we want to make sure that our local and regional stakeholders are getting the information about broadband, what's going on in the state, what's going on at the federal level. So we'll be doing that again here the next week, June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So the first half of that virtual listening tour will be providing information to attendees about what's going on. And then the second half is listening to your broadband needs. What's going on with you? What needs do you have? What roadblocks are there? What are some of the stumbling points? And we can answer those questions. It's almost like a call-in show where we can answer your questions and listen to some of the issues that you're having out there. We're hosting 5 of these sessions next week. All the sessions are the same, so it's the same format, same information, but we wanted to make sure that there were multiple times and opportunities to accommodate all of the attendees that want to join. We didn't want to host just one meeting and not have somebody be able to fit that in their schedule. So we're hosting 5 instead. So we can accommodate those that want to participate. And the registration link is here as well. And we will get that, we will get this presentation out to you so you can have that link live and register for that virtual listening tour. Ryan, let's go to the next one. Oh, maybe that was my last one. And that's okay. I didn't see any other questions come in. So if you do have other questions, go ahead and send them in now. I can hang around for a little bit to answer them. Again, we will send this presentation out as soon as this webinar is over to make sure you have all of these live links and the information. You can access the NOFA. You'll have the contact information for the NTIA. Please register for the NTIA's webinars about this program June 9th and 10th. If you're interested in it, they will have much more information. I wanted to make sure we got our communities a leg up on preparing for this grant program, which is why we did it today. But thank you for attending. And again, we will get this information out to everyone as soon as we can.